In this tutorial, we'll be talking about strings and escape characters in PHP. String manipulations in PHP are very easy. In fact, they are as easy as ABC. And as such, we'll start off with how to concatenate strings in PHP. Now let's get back to our code. You will notice on my screen here that I am in a string escape sequence.php file, and we have like 2 lines of command in this code. From line 3, you will notice that a variable has been created, a, and is set to the value php is my. Then another variable, b, has been set to the value best programming language. Alright, at this point now, we want to concatenate these two variables. And by concatenation, I mean join. How do we do this? Fairly easy. Now, what we use to concatenate in PHP is simply the dot. You may call it full stop in the English language. Now, let us say, for example, I want to output PHP is my best programming language from the example on the screen. All I need to do is type echo the first variable, which is a, concatenate it with the second variable, b. Do not forget your ending semicolon. Now when you save this, we can come here and run our code. You know what to do already. Localhost / the name of the file. And as you can see from the screen, it says PHP is my best programming language. Notice that it has concatenated this with this to produce this. Now let me show you another neat little trick that you can also do. You could as well say, before this echo command here, you could say the a variable concatenate equals to the b variable. Now don't forget your semicolon. At this point now, what you need to do is simply output a or echo a. Why? Because we have told PHP to take the first variable, concatenate it with the second variable, and then assign it back to that variable. I believe you remember when we did this in the past tutorial. Now let us see if this will produce the same result. Refresh, you notice that it's exactly the same result that we have here. So it is as simple as that. Concatenation in PHP. Now we are moving on to the next, which is the types of strings that we have in PHP. Well, there are simply 2 types of strings in PHP. We have the ones that are put into the single quotes, and the other is put into double quotes. So you may ask, which one would you make use of? If you observed carefully from this our example, you would have noticed that the value of the variable a is set to the single quote, but for variable b, it is set to the double quote. So at this point, you might be confused. Which one should I make use of? Or maybe you feel you can make use of any one at any given point in time. Well, there is slight difference between the two, and I would like to show you just now. If I were to create another variable, c, and assign it the value not, and so I decide to bring this variable c here in front of is. Can you take note of that? So now what I have here is PHP is the variable c, my best programming language. What do you think will happen? Well, let me save this, refresh the code. You will notice that the variable c just came out just exactly the way we typed it here. But if this were a double quote, notice what will happen. I save this, I refresh this. You notice that it brings the value for the variable C. So the double quote will treat the variable as a variable, therefore outputting its value. But the single quote will actually treat it as a normal string, therefore bringing it out exactly the way you put it there. So at this point now, you might have an idea of which one to use at what time. So that is pretty much the subtle difference between the single quotes and the double quotes. Oftentimes, I prefer to use the double quotes, but the preference will be on you. Now, we are done with strings. We are moving on to escape characters in PHP. What do? They assist us in escaping some sort of string errors. We are going to see some practical examples in a short while. We are going to first of all talk about escaping quotes. How do we do this in PHP? If, for example, I want to say PHP is Jack's best programming language, you will notice that something has gone wrong here. Notice from here, PHP has recognized that this quote actually ends here. Therefore, it says, I'm done with this from here to here. And so it assumes that we are starting another quote from here. This will return a very fatal error in PHP. So if I'm to refresh this page, for example, you notice we have a parse error. So how do we take care of this if you still want to stick with this single quote? Well, it is worthy to note that if you change this to double quotes, everything will be just fine. But if you want to stick to this same single quote, all you need to do is come here and put a backslash. Save this. We come here, we refresh this, you notice it comes out just fine. So this has helped us to escape this particular code. Hence, PHP just overlooks this one and then jumps to the next one. So it now sees this as the beginning and this one as the ending. It's as simple as that. So that is how to escape codes in PHP. There are still other stuffs we can do to escape characters in PHP. For example, we have the backslash n, which helps us produce a new line for our string. We have the backslash t, which produces a tab space, and the backslash r, which produces carriage return. So this is the basics for strings and escape characters in PHP. In the next video, we'll be talking about multi-line statements.